Hello, fellow Star Wars fans. My name is Starrapter, and welcome back to the channel. It's time to talk about some Star Wars comics. We have three from Marvel this week. The first one we're going to talk about is Dr. Aphra, issue number 29. This one's called Balance. It's with the author, the writer, Alyssa Wong, of course, with a new artist on board, and that is Natasha Bustos. I'm pretty sure she is new to Star Wars, so welcome. But we have this really awesome built-up story about the Ascendant versus the Sith. And last we left off, we have Dr. Aphra. He's half possessed by the Spark Eternal, which is that ultimate creation of Muriel, who was the leader of the Ascendant way back then, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, to mimic the Force. They were trying to use technology to use the Force. So basically, we have this whole journey of Dr. Aphra going to this location, Pyrrhix X or whatever, which is an Ascendant temple, to try to uncover more of the technology of what's happening there. But Dr. Aphra, her actual mind is semi in control. So this issue in a nutshell is really kind of peeling back the layers of what it is that the Ascendant actually stands for. So we get this great flashback with the Shadrafen leader of the organization, Muriel, and, just trying to figure out how this Spark Eternal is working. And she has a compatriot that has kind of gone rogue, and he's using the Spark Eternal to kind of, torture people and stuff for the dark side. He figures there's got to be a dark side and a light side to the Spark Eternal, because the balance, like in the Force, you have the light side and the dark side. So he's trying to come from that ideology, whereas Muriel's like, we're going to use this as a shield to protect people. So as they're discussing this at this temple, that's when the Sith break in, and then that's when we see like the extermination of the Ascendant and how they all basically just get exterminated. Meanwhile, we also have that story of Sanastaros, of all those other characters that are trying to get Dr. Aphra back. So they are trying to figure out exactly where she is. They're trying to locate her. They're coming up with their master plan. And in doing so, they're giving us a lot more of, just expanding the lore about the Fermata Cage, which we know is heavily linked into Qi'ra's plan of the Crimson Dawn to take out Vader and the Palpatine himself, the Emperor. And what happens is we're learning a lot more information that the Fermata Cage, maybe it doesn't actually have Lord Momin trapped inside, but they're using that as a lure to get Vader and Palpatine close enough to this thing, because what the Fermata Cage actually will actually trap souls inside so they can't get out. So the ultimate plan of Kofan Ferris, who has done a lot of work with this Ascendant tech, as we have Sanastaros and Tolvin and all those people talking with her, is she says we have to get the Fermata Cage to basically encapsulate and capture the Spark Eternal so it never becomes a thing anymore and it can never be released. So we have now got our end game plan for what this crew of characters, what the whole end game story, because this storyline's been going on for a long time. It's been happening for probably close to a year at this point. And when we show up with Dr. Aphra, she gets the last shard from this temple that she's at. She gets the last shard of the Ascendant shard, able to put it fully together. She has now overridden Dr. Aphra's, subservient being inside her own body, and now heads to the Amaxine Station. Yes, the Amaxine Station might sound familiar to the High Republic fans because it was in the second book of the Phase 1 by Claudia Gray, Into the Dark. That is where the Drengir slept. And that is also a location we see in The Rise of Kylo Ren where Snoke was actually there, and that's where Ben Solo first went to consult with Snoke after he destroyed the temple on Ossus, as we've seen in The Last Jedi. So it's all coming around full circle. We have a lot of cool Sith stuff mixed with the Ascendant coming up very soon in the future for the Star Wars. All right, next up, we have a new story arc, and this is Yoda issue number 4, but you could almost count this as a completely new storyline. Actually, it is a completely new storyline. The last 3 issues have been written by K. Van Scott, and it's really been talking about Yoda in the High Republic. Now we are getting into that pre-Clone Wars, that pre-Phantom Menace era. This one is called Students of the Force, Part 1, Old Friends. We have a new creative team on this maxi series for issue 4. The next 3 issues are going to be written by Jody Hauser, famed writer for other content such as Age of Rebellion, I think she did, or Age of the Republic, one of those, as well as the good old Luke Ross. I love his artwork. I'm going to shout it out right here and there. What he does with Yoda in this, I don't think anybody comes close with Star Wars comics with making Yoda look this real and this alive through the pages. So we get this awesome story where Yoda is bringing in Count Dooku to help teach the initiates. These are the kids that aren't even Padawans. They're the ones with the helmets that have the lightsabers, as we see in Attack of the Clones and as we've seen Revenge of the Sith. So at this point in time, we are before the events of the Phantom Menace. Count Dooku hasn't left the Jedi Order yet because apparently he's still on the council at this point, but he's been asked by Yoda to, lend a helping hand. So it's pretty neat because we're getting a lot of new characters we haven't even seen before. We have a Trandoshan Jedi, we have a Wookiee Jedi, we have I believe a Nikto Jedi or some other. So it's pretty interesting seeing these different species, especially seeing a Trandoshan and a Wookiee Jedi working side by side. If you watch the Book of Boba Fett, you know how much Black K hates the Trandoshans and what he does with ripping one's arm out of his socket on Tatooine. Yeah, that happens all throughout the galaxy. There's just been this animosity built up. So we're seeing a lot of cool things here. What this really gets into is the connectivity, right? The canon, the paper canon. We got, or not even paper, because in fact we're referencing a lot with an audio drama, Dooku Jedi Lost from Command Scott, and about how we have Cypher DS and he's seeing into the future. And the Jedi kind of know what he's thinking about, but they don't act on it. So, Dooku in this is actually questioning Yoda, like, hey, why don't we listen to my buddy Cypher DS a little bit more? He might actually have a point to what he's going through. And Yoda's just being dogmatic as all the Jedi always have been. And like, I'll think about it. Nothing ever comes to it. And then we have the same situation on Rising where this Wookiee Jedi named Krish has some kind of vision about this Trandoshan versus Wookiee war or something. And he lets Dooku know, and Dooku says, well, it's best to keep it under wraps for now because we know Yoda's not going to really do anything with it anyway. So it's very interesting how there's a lot of callbacks. The artwork looks awesome. We're getting to see Dooku sparring with Yoda, and we're getting to see the reactions of the students actually like caring about, oh yeah, this is something we haven't seen. This is our entertainment, right? We're seeing these two legendary Jedi masters fighting in front of us, and it's like their entertainment. It's their gladiatorial arena in this day and age. But I'm liking how we're peeling back more layers of characters. We got some awesome content from Dooku Jedi Lost from Tales of the Jedi with those Dooku adventures, and we're getting more Dooku, and we're getting to see that transition. I love the one panel, the one page in this where you see Dooku as an initiate, Dooku as a Padawan, and Dooku as a Jedi Master. I like seeing that. The delineation throughout the years is really neat. And this one I'm very excited for. The long-delayed Dark Horse presents. We have Star Wars High Republic Adventures, The Nameless Terror. This is issue 1 of 4, written by George Mann with artwork by Eduardo Mello. So this one has a framework in it, right? It has a framing objective where we have Ty York that was created by Kevin Scott for the Rising Storm. She is currently in phase 1, aka about 200 years before the events of the Phantom Menace. And we know she's still alive in phase 2. She wasn't really a part of a lot of it. She was in Temple of Monster Peak or Monster Temple Peak, whatever. She was in that comic miniseries. She was in the Rising Storm. So I'm thinking that this framing setup is probably taking place in between phase 2 and phase 1 and phase 3 in that time frame. Anyway, she is talking to her droid about hearing some things about this nameless terror ramping around the galaxy as we know of, and she's calling back to a story that's been told by a friend or something, and that's their father, their master, and it was when he was a Padawan. So she's calling back to this character of Koron Solstice. And these guys, you have multiple Jedi, you have the Republic, right? You have these different missions of people that are going out these on the frontier, if you will, right? The Pathfinder mission group. You got people trying to set up communications in the Outer Rim. It's very new. It's very dangerous. So you have these specific teams, led by Jedi with technicians and all to try to get the communication array in that wide web of the Outer Rim established. So there's lots of adventuring, lots of danger, but a lot of fun that a lot of Jedi are craving. So anyway, they're on this transport, they're running around, they're flying around. Next thing you know, they run into this ship that literally just smashes them and they both collide to the ground. So now, next thing you know, it's all about survival. They don't know anything about this planet. They're on this mysterious planet. They're about 7 people and a droid walking around, wandering around, and they have to survive. They have to find this food. They have to find a way out of that planet to get out of there safely. So they split up in teams. And wouldn't you know, the people that knock them into that planet are part of the Path of the Open Hand. And what's interesting about this is they have been transporting, wouldn't you know, the Nameless Terrors themselves, right? The Nameless, these things that are going to siphon, as we know, the Force is energy for them. They will suck out the Force, living Force out of the Jedi to feed themselves and turning them to husks. So we have this terror, this enemy right from the get-go of these 4 issues where we're seeing, okay, these Jedi aren't really sure what's happening. They can feel the presence of whatever this thing is lurking in the darkness, and they have to really act on it. But we're seeing that the Path of the Looping Hand is kind of like the predecessors, if you will, of the Nile. So we're seeing a lot of that happen. But specific things I want to call out. First off, we have a big connection between this and Quest for the Hidden City, also written by George Mann, which features a character named Rock. And in that story, that young reader novel, he actually loses a Padawan on a similar mission where he crash lands on this, like, things get bad. He can't get off this planet called Gloam, and his Padawan dies, and a lot of other people die from these vampiric type of creatures. So I like how we're picking up in this issue, and you can see him kind of sulking a little bit to one of the other Jedi who actually gets hurt. It's a Bith that gets hurt, and that's part of the mission, is they have to get the medical supplies to save this Jedi's life because they're not going to live for much longer. So we have a little bit of a risk involved. We have a little bit of strife, a little bit of stakes in this story, but it's more compartmentalized, which I really like. So yeah, all in all, this is a great way to start a story in this era, right? Phase 2 was primed for us to be that adventure story where we're going to explore the frontier, we're going to explore the Outer Rim. Even the original onset of the High Republic was originally pitched that way to us. It's like there's a lot of frontiering, there's a lot of cool adventuring. We didn't get so much of that in Phase 1, but Phase 2, I'm happy to say that at least mission, or the quest to the quest for the Hidden City, as well as the Nameless Terror, are really getting into that specific subject matter that I've been looking forward to so much. But yeah, artwork is fantastic, great coloring, everything. Writing is so good about this. I cannot wait for the next 3 issues. So there you have it. Those were Dr. Aphra, Yoda, as well as the Nameless Terror. What'd you think about all those? You could talk about them in the comment section down below. For more on Star Wars, you're already in the right place. I have my podcast you can listen or watch on a weekly basis called the Outer Rim Transmission. Would love for you guys to chime in the live chat on that every Friday at 9 o'clock Eastern. So that's going to do it for me, Starrapter. Thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you always. Thanks for checking out the video. Please hit that thumbs up symbol. It helps me know that I'm making content that you guys enjoy. And if you enjoyed this video, I also include 2 videos down below you guys should check out. And please consider subscribing to this channel. It helps support me, and it notifies you guys of when I get new videos up on the channel. You can also contact me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Starrapter.